Residential Report Writing and Case Studies, Chapter 3, Chapter Overview. In Chapter 3, we will cover the minimum content requirements of USPAP Standards Rule 2-2A for an appraisal report. We will also address ancillary issues, including the use of pre-printed report forms, market value definitions, exposure time, disclosure of real property appraisal assistance, and disclosure of prior services. Chapter 3, Learning Objectives. Upon completion of this chapter, participants will be able to identify the minimum content requirements for an appraisal report, identify areas where commonly used forms reports may not provide sufficient information to comply with USPAP requirements, outline USPAP requirements for disclosure of prior services provided regarding the subject property. End of page. Introduction. Of the two written report options in USPAP, the more commonly used is the appraisal report, which is found in the left column of the table in Advisory Opinion 11, previous chapter, and in USPAP Standards Rule 2-2A. The restricted appraisal report typically provides so little information and detail that it is not sufficient for our clients in most situations. In fact, the restricted appraisal report can never be provided when there are intended users other than the client, hence the name restricted. Its applicability in real-life appraisal practice is limited indeed. Your client will often request that your report be communicated at the level of an appraisal report. When your client requests that your report be presented on a Fannie Mae form such as the URAR or 2055, he or she and Fannie Mae is essentially asking for an appraisal report. Forms by themselves are not reports. A form, like the Fannie Mae 1004, can be a suitable container for a report. In order for any Fannie Mae form to contain an appraisal report, we have to make sure that we fill it up properly by including the USPAP minimum content requirements specified in SR 2-2A. Appraisal report. Since the appraisal report is the reporting option that is suitable for our clients and other intended users most of the time, this chapter will concentrate on this reporting option. Let us examine each of the 12 requirements of Standards Rule 2-2A in order. As before, the blue itemized sections are direct quotations from USPAP. Remember that Standards Rule 2-2 states that the report must prominently state which reporting option is used. USPAP also states that to the extent that it is possible and appropriate, an oral appraisal report must meet the content requirements of an appraisal report. Before we dive into Standards Rule 2-2A, there will be a short quiz. End of page. Number 1. When is it inappropriate for an appraiser to provide a restricted use appraisal report? A. When the subject is a complex property. B. When the appraisal involves an extraordinary assumption. C. When the client is the owner of the property. Or D. When there are intended users other than the client. I'm going to go D. Barb is reporting an appraisal of a single-family home using a URAR form. What is the best way to ensure that her report meets the requirements for an appraisal report? A. Meet the minimum content. Puta la verga.